He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is The Alex Marlow Show.
Welcome to The Alex Marlow Show, and I'm glad you're here. It is going to be a terrific show today, if I say so myself, and I think there's going to be a little something for everyone. I'm going to get into my Election Day preview for you momentarily, but then we've got a deep dive conversation with a rep from the AARP talking about elder care, which affects a lot of families, starting to affect my family. And I feel like it's one of those things that a lot of the audience is going to be on one side of this issue. And we got to prepare for this. Got a lot of aging citizens who need respect and dignity and resources. And are we thinking about it enough? No, we're not. We're not. This is a new frontier for us as a country. Got to get into that. And then the one and only Scott Jennings is here. And we had a conversation that I taped recently, and he just absolutely fantastic guy. He's a really good person. And I think you guys can tell that. He's not just a good debater, but we get into some insight about his process, how he does so well in these debate formats, and then as a host with me on the Salem Network. So we got all that coming up, but I will recommend yesterday's show where I do a 15-minute dive into what I think is happening on the online right with the topic of Israel, anti-Semitism, and some of the most powerful conservative voices either flirting with anti-Semitism, flirting with at least anti-Israel conversation, and others kind of opting out. And some of them, I think, taking a strong line for Israel, which I agree with in principle, but might not actually be effective. So I get into all that yesterday. So I do recommend that show. And it's timely because we have today our sponsor of the show, International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, which is a great group that is a great partner of mine. Even with the ceasefire now in place, the people of Israel continue to pray for healing from the deep wounds of terrorism and war, pain that touches each and every person in the Holy Land. But the journey to healing and restoration has only just begun, and it's far from over. Never has the bridge between Christians and Jews been tested as it has since October the 7th. But after 2 years of prayer and tangible acts of love, that bridge stands stronger than ever before. God's miraculously fulfilling his plan to unite Christians and Jews for his divine purpose. These are prophetic times, and together with the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, we can take part. United, we can do the holy work of providing food for the hungry, care for the elderly, and healing for the wounded. Your prayers and your support help restore hope and strength throughout Israel. Let us answer the call together and be a light in the darkness. To learn more, ifcj.org is the website. That's ifcj.org. I guess we start with Dick Cheney passing away. I don't have a ton to say about Dick Cheney that's going to blow you away, but obviously he had this tremendous arc as being one of the most influential vice presidents in American history, and he used that influence in order to get America into wars that lasted decades and costed countless blood and treasure, and was instrumental to the formation of the America First movement, because he sort of has this loathsome personality where, at least publicly, I don't know what he's like in private. I'd never met him. I had one interview with Liz Cheney. That's my entire connection to the Cheneys over my 17 years in media. And just someone who is just very unlikable as a individual from afar, not to say that's always an accurate representation, but then his policies were basically sending young men and women off to foreign wars, which would benefit American corporations, including his corporation, and then they would die or come back wounded. And it's just, that's his legacy. And I think that was part of the reason why once America had a figurehead like a Donald Trump, who could identify mostly as a Republican, but against those forever wars, we took the first chance we could get, and we jumped on that bandwagon. So, a figure who was associated forever with the war on terror and with America's interventionist foreign policy of the early portion of this century that did not serve us very well. And we learned a lot of lessons in the process. And he really is one of the people I think precipitated the MAGA movement because of how unsuccessful his foreign policy was and how highly aggressive it was. So that's going to be the main topic of conversation, at least in our circles. And I don't want to dwell on it too much. I don't have a lot of nice things to say, and he just died, and it is even people who you don't like very much. It's sort of uncouth to talk about them overly negative. I try to keep a classy show. You guys know that. But I just find it unbelievable that a guy who was the face of Republican establishment politics so quickly went from being Republican vice president to endorsing Kamala Harris, and that the media played him up as some sort of a sage-like figure or someone who had deep understanding of human rights after a track record that is defined by Afghanistan, by Iraq, by dead Americans, by contractors making all sorts of money, by the military-industrial complex. And then he exited the political stage being associated with Trump hatred and connecting with Democrats as they moved left. So pretty remarkable thing. One of the most remarkable things of the century, just tracking that arc from Dick Cheney. And he's gone, and we'll have some obituaries at Breitbart News for you so you can get more detail, but we'll break that down for you as well. But that's the top story other than the elections, which is tonight. Matt Boyle goes through all of his takes. If you're curious for more content, premium content, Breitbart Fight Club, which is our premium membership subscriber service that we have. And I do a show there every single day where I do a deep dive with one of my reporters and editors called Breitbart Confidential. I talked to Boyle about it today. We go through all the races. I'll give you what I'm tracking. Some of this will be similar to yesterday, but just in case people don't catch every show, I'll throw this out there. I'll start with the biggest race of the night, which is the New York race. Mamdani's got a commanding lead. Adams endorsed Cuomo, I guess, at the last minute, Eric Adams, the outgoing mayor. And Trump came out for Cuomo, but was very tepid because Trump knows Cuomo is a bad guy, and Cuomo made Trump look very bad during the pandemic. And it turned out that Trump was closer to correct. No one was perfect during that time, but Trump did a lot better job than Cuomo. And Cuomo got Emmys for it, and the media loved the way Cuomo handled the pandemic, even though it was total disaster, as I've been through on the show over and over and over, and wrote extensively about in my books, particularly Breaking the News. I have a huge section on how badly Cuomo failed. Those of you like that book, another popular book of my books. So New York City election day can get crazy, and we're tracking all this for you at Breitbart right now. Some of this will be inevitably will have evolved since I am recording the podcast today, but we're seeing some voting machines in Republican areas go offline. We're seeing Mamdani appear on the ballot twice. So lots of things that could be shenanigans. Sometimes there's just a reasonable human error element that comes up. But again, I'm not rooting for Cuomo. I'm just not. And that's why I endorse Mamdani, because I feel accelerationist in this regard. And I've been witnessing it firsthand. I see how all of you guys talk about us out in California, and you guys are rooting for us to fail, and we are failing. And we are your social experiment out here. And don't think I don't see this, even in my own audience. You guys have rooted for us to fail, and we are failing more. And I don't think people who have thrown us under the bus have helped. And now I'm on that side with New York. I don't think that it's worth having a Cuomo mayorship. I just don't think that there's any point in electing Cuomo at anything. I just don't. I think he's the worst politician in America. It's unacceptable the way he dealt with the pandemic, the way he was having policies that led to inevitable deaths of senior citizens. He trapped them in homes with infected people, assuring their demise, won an Emmy for it, felt up the Emmy and called it buxom to his staff, and then a bunch of other sex harassment allegations in the process, and he just should not be elected to dog catcher. So he should not be district selectman. So he should not be the mayor of New York. And so who is left? And you can make a case that Sliwa, who never had a chance, if not, it's Mamdani, he's the guy. And I am curious to see what the left does with this burst of energy that they have. Mamdani is the most charismatic Democrat politician already in America. He is the best communicator of any of the major Democrats that I can see by a mile. He is able to dial in the messaging at the best level that I've seen. So we should be tested with that stuff on the right. And when his policies inevitably fail, it is going to be incumbent upon us to explain that to the people persuasively. And it's going to be a huge opportunity when it happens. And I'm sorry, those of you in New York are going to have to feel some pain in the process, but that's where I'm at. I've been there from day one, and I'm not really coming off that. So let's see how that goes. In terms of who's going to win, we do get election day craziness. We have seen polls miss really big in New York in particular. And I tell you, it'd be entertaining. I'd be entertaining if we got some sort of a big upset. But it looks like the immigrant vote, first generation and zero and first generation Americans are going to swing that election towards Mamdani, which is a very important thing that we've been talking about. Breitbart News, for over a decade that when the Great Replacement is real, and we are trying to replace normal Americans, existing native-born Americans, people with roots down, with people who have been imported, sometimes for good reason, often for not as good reason, but they're here and they tend to vote for Democrats who provide the most handouts, most welfare, et cetera. We had a story on this at Breitbart News, which connects, which is half of migrant households get welfare via their U.S.-born children. Warren Todd Houston has this written up for us. Center for Immigration Studies, an invaluable group. Story: 47% of non-citizen homes with children under 6 are on food stamps or WIC. So we import people to mooch off of our system when we're running a major debt and deficit, and we've never learned our lesson. We never decided that that's going to be front and center for us to stop this from happening. We're seeing incredible work from the second Trump administration, but even the first Trump administration did not take this sufficiently seriously, and they opted to focus on other things. Even though I still give that administration a thumbs up overall, this was the priority, and now it finally is. Thank God, literally. So I'm happy about that, but it's very late in the game, and this is going to be the result. And it's important for people to see the result, is you're going to have to deal with people like Mamdani. And it's also noteworthy to see some conservatives' message about him online, and some of it's just really not effective. I saw one guy had put up a Twin Towers getting with planes flying into them, and just associating Mamdani with that. There's no evidence he wants 9/11 to take place. So it's just, we got to understand that if we sound too radical and crazy, we're going to alienate normal people, because the vast majority of people who vote are not sitting around on X, the Everything app, all day. The majority of people who vote don't go to Breitbart.com even. They don't go and see what the other side is thinking. Even though we have tens of millions of readers, not everyone who's a voter goes to our website. You got to think about who we're getting through to, and are we getting through to people by associating Mamdani with 9/11? That's just too far. It's just not going to be persuasive. So he has, by the way, and his closing arguments are just hard left, Mamdani, pledging to strengthen sanctuary city laws, vowing to fight Trump with federal funding of elections. One of Mamdani advisor has said that his anti-Israel views are crucial to getting support. So that's why Trump's saying, I guess we can't mess around with it. New York should vote for Cuomo, but it was a very reluctant endorsement that Trump put out. It's almost not even an endorsement. Bomb threats at several New Jersey polls forcing closures, just amazing stuff. There's so many shenanigans in this country. We don't have a uniform voting system, partially because it's the state is really what is tasked with the vote. But still, you get this, you get these scenarios where it's just hard to keep track of all the improprieties. And luckily, we've got people, the Scott Presslers of the world, who are heavily involved, keep an eye on stuff for us. We'll report everything we know at Breitbart.com, and you'll have all the latest throughout the night. It's going to be an exciting night. Those of you who are looking for more me content, I'll be popping up pretty much everywhere. I think Salem News Channel, Fox News, on Laura Ingraham Show, Newsmax. So I'll be out and about. I'll be on Breitbart News Daily in the morning. So I'll give my analysis in real time. Pretty much, you'll be able to find me. If you're looking for me, I'll be out there. Okay, other races other than New York. The biggest chance for a conservative upset is in New Jersey. This is one I might be most excited about. Jack Ciattarelli has run a really nice campaign. Remember, he almost beat Phil Murphy last time, and he beat his poll numbers. And the Mickey Sherrill has a scandalous record, the sort of insider stock trading that has been associated with the Nancy Pelosi's of the world has been the main focus, but there's been some others. Not a charismatic person. That said, Ciattarelli is not a MAGA guy. He has not done any interviews with Breitbart, so put a marker in that to see if that could be the difference, not sufficiently getting the conservative base out to vote. We'll see if that's a factor, but overall, I'm optimistic about that race. And another one where Republicans could see some good news is in Pennsylvania. That's where Scott Presler has been working very hard to try to flip some of those judgeship races. So remember, if you're out there, you're voting Pennsylvania and you catch this last minute, make sure to vote in those judgeship races. You got to flip the ballot over, Scott was saying, to get those. So that's really big. And that's another opportunity for Republicans, because I think it's only Democrat or left-wing judges who are potentially we can only have pickups. If you're a conservative Republican, there's only pickups on the table there. So Democrats would just be holding territory and it would not be something where they would be gaining ground if they win. So that's a good one. Virginia is looking funky for us. Winsome Earl-Sears, who is an anti-Trump Republican. She is an anti-Trump Republican. I want her to win. I think that she's a good communicator. I think she's got an amazing personal story, but is someone who was not just a Ron DeSanctimonious supporter, but was really sort of a never-Trumper for a time, and that could haunt her in a race against Abigail Spanberger, who's a just generic Democrat, left-wing, couldn't distance herself from Jay Jones, who's on the ballot as well, down ticket, who was fantasizing about violence against Republicans. So that one it's going to be tough. I just think that Winsome Earl-Sears went way too far in alienating Trump's base, and that could be a problem. I understand why. Virginia's got a lot of establishment Republicans in it and a lot of Democrats, but I just don't think in an off-year election you've got to get some of those base voters motivated to come out, because the Democrats get organized, they get people to polls better, especially when they're out of power and they're looking to vent their frustration, and to motivate Republicans to come out and vote for an anti-Trump Republican. I disagree with it if you stay home, but I just, in terms of math, some people are going to inevitably stay home. So I'm not that optimistic there, but I'm hoping for the best, because Sears obviously is a superior candidate in every stretch of the word. She just made some real mistakes fundamentally. And then next up, California Prop 50. Nothing I'm hearing is looking good there, so that'll give Newsom the chance to redistrict and subvert democracy yet again. And I think that's sort of the main ones. There might be some others I'm missing, but that's it. So we're it's remote chance in California, but we'll remain optimistic till the end. Make sure to vote if you're out there, because you might be getting this podcast before the polls close. Make sure to vote. Give it your best shot. You cannot opt out. One of the lessons of breaking the law that I point out. You cannot opt out. You got to try every single time. That's the way to go. The only way we're going to have a chance is if we do that. And New Jersey, Virginia, Pennsylvania in particular, you have to get out to vote. And New York is just a curio for me. I just want to see what happens. So up to the minute news at Breitbart.com all night. I will, if I do any great commentary, I'll try to put on my feeds and X the Everything app. And that's it. I got 2 great interviews for you, so I'm going to get into those right now and check them out. All right. I'm a huge tent guy. I want to bring in more people into the tent as possible. And so I was very pleased when the AARP reached out and suggested that perhaps they could be good partners for the show and for some of the other hosts at Salem as well. And John Hishta is here to talk about what the AARP is up to, Senior Vice President of Campaigns at the AARP. He leads a nationwide effort to elevate the voices of Americans 50 and over on the issues that matter the most, from Social Security to Medicare, prescription drugs, affordability, family caregiving, and he's a longtime industry veteran and someone who is a real expert in a lot of the things we're going to be touching on today. Also a proud Penn State grad.
Yes,
John,
sir.
what do you know about Penn State? So many people are it feels like it really does engender a lot of just enthusiasm and allegiance.
Well, it is by far the largest alumni association in the world. That's a little known fact. And yes, we are very enthusiastic about our alma mater. Although this year we're a little bit disturbed by the way the football season has unfolded, but we'll get beyond that and hopefully get better next year when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I had a tough one over the weekend. I was tracking that one. So
the good news is we're a wrestling powerhouse, so I like to tell people.
You know what? I come from a wrestling family. I have a cousin who is a 2-time New York State champion in high school.
Really?
My dad was a varsity wrestler, so it's I got a cousin who's a wrestling coach. So, we could talk wrestling next time you're here. But I want to talk about what you're doing, campaigns you're running right now, what you're spearheading at the moment, trying to engage people on policy, what policies in particular. But I've only got one hard question on my book. This is the only one, but I want to ask it first, which is, I think a lot of people in my audience don't associate the AARP with anything remotely conservative. And so this was part of what intrigued me about the idea of you guys coming on, is that I feel like that there's a lot of my views were considered not normal. They always were normal, but they were not normal. And then now it feels like the tent has grown, and then now you guys are here. And I just want to know if you could offer any insight into that, because I think it's terrific, and thank you.
Well, I think, first of all, particularly with right of center voters, they care about, particularly the 50 plus, a lot of the same issues that we are focused on, like Social Security, like Medicare, financial security, retirement security. We're going to talk about family caregiving. These are all issues that cut across party lines, cut across demographic lines, and the majority of the people, particularly those who are older, really care about. And the more we can engage with folks like yourself and with others across the political spectrum, the more we can advance those issues so that more people can benefit. We've had a wonderful relationship over the past few years working with President Trump on making sure that we were able to give him a platform during the 24 election, for instance, to talk about Social Security, to talk about caregiving. We know he's a champion for some of the issues in the caregiving space. And so we want to continue this conversation, not just today, but in future times as well.
Well, we're glad to have you here. So give me, first of all, let's just set up the concept of caregiving, because this is the word that in the conversations I've had with folks on your team leading up to this, that's the word: caregivers, caregiving. These are the key ones we got to define before we can go further. Tell us what we should know about those words.
So at its core, a caregiver is somebody who takes care of their loved one, whether it's a mom or dad, a sibling, an adult child who may have some issues, on a volunteer basis for the most part. Now, some people do get some stipends here and there, but at the end of the day, you're talking about people who take care of their loved ones on a day-to-day basis because they need help. There's 63 million people in this country who identify as caregivers right now. And it's folks like myself, for instance, who the last 2 or 3 years of my parents' life, I took care of them on a day-to-day basis. They lived in assisted living, but at the same time, I was the one who took them to all their medical appointments, made sure that they had their medications up to snuff, and did all the little things associated with making sure that they were able to age with dignity. And so there are a lot of folks like that around the country who just do it, frankly, Alex, on a personal level, and don't necessarily think of themselves as part of a larger community. And what we're trying to do in these conversations, particularly because November is National Caregivers Month, is raise awareness around caregivers and raise awareness around some of the public policy prescriptions that could be beneficial to caregivers throughout the country, whether it's on a national level or on individual state levels.
Okay, so now we understand what caregivers are, and these are families that are going to have a lot of financial strain. I just had this conversation with a friend not a week ago who said he's looking to pick up an extra work because his mom is sick and needs money and isn't prepared for the worst. So the AARP has got a new caregiving in the U.S. You guys have new state level data. I want to talk about some of the data, and I want to talk about some of these challenges and how people navigate them and how you guys can help.
So first of all, I would encourage people to go to our website at aarp.org/care for caregivers. It's a website that has a lot of information, not only about what we're supporting from a public policy standpoint, but also how you can join the movement. And at the same time, on a state-by-state level, depending on where you live, get resource guides on things like legal aid and local transportation needs and things of that nature, hotlines, and so on and so forth. And so I want to make sure people understand that there is a place where that information is available. We just did a nationwide study, and this is the first year that we broke it down by state level data, which shows, the types of care or how many caregivers are in each state, the financial strain on folks across the country. Alex, average family caregiver spends $7,200 out of pocket a year on caregiving expenses for their loved ones. Wow. That is an enormous amount of money for folks who are just trying to make ends meet paycheck to paycheck. And so that is something, for instance, that we're trying to figure out a way to work with elected officials, like I said, on both the state and national levels, who help alleviate that strain a little bit as we move forward.
So you are really onto something here. And I've thought about this a lot because I've got a medical family on my wife's side. And Americans are getting older. We're living longer
That's
because
right.
of improvements in medicine. And we're also having fewer children, and our government's already running a massive deficit and a ballooning debt. And it just feels like we're not paying sufficient attention to being prepared for when we have lots and lots of elderly people and how to take care of all of them. And that really seems like where you guys are starting to put a lot of focus.
Well, and I would also say that fundamentally, we've lost sight of the fact that most people in this country, when they age, want to age in their own homes or
Yes,
age
that's right.
in a home with their kids. It was, not to age myself, but I grew up in the 60s and 70s, and it was much more common then. But my grandmother lived with us for the last 18 years of her life,
Wow.
and my mom took care of her, or we all took care of her, and she had a profound effect on my life too in terms of growing up. But the more you can do that, the less strain from a resource standpoint it is on the country overall. And so we're trying to also be in a position where we can talk more and more about how you can figure out a way to keep people in their own homes as they age so that they can age with dignity and be much more happy in their environment from that perspective. And that's something that we all ought to consider.
Let's home in on some of that state level data that you guys have. And so you've new report revealing how financial strain is impacting caregivers in every state. Tell us about some top level findings, but also what people can do to access the data and check it out and see if it might apply to them.
So I would go to the same website I mentioned, aarp.org/care for caregivers, where the study is located. The top level takeaway is that your experience around caregiving depends on where you live for the most part. So, for instance, Georgia has the highest level of folks who consider themselves under financial strain as caregivers. It's something close to 60%, whereas in Minnesota, it's still a huge number. It's 34% of the caregivers there consider themselves under financial stress, but it's obviously lower than Georgia. And in some cases, there is a huge number of sandwich generation folks who are taking care of not just their parents, but also their kids at the same time. And that's something that we need to take into consideration as we move forward as well.
The caregiving is so time consuming that has a big that adds the out of pocket cost, because not just that you're buying medical equipment or things like that
Right.
or devices for people, it's also productive time where you're not earning, you're not resting, so you can earn more when the rest of your time. And so it really is a big financial event for a lot of families if they get into that world.
That's correct. And the more we can, again, come up with some policy solutions that afford people the opportunity to step away from work if they have to take their mom and their dad to a medical appointment or grocery shopping or things of that nature, the more productive we can be overall as an economy and as a society. You don't want to put that kind of stress on folks who may have to take, vacation days to do that, so to speak, if you will. There's some corporations that do allow for caregiving leave, but not everybody does that. It would be great if we could have a conversation writ large with business in America to come to the conclusion that that's an important step for folks to take as well when it's all said and done.
You guys sent me some really fascinating data here. Nearly 2/3 of registered voters have been or expected to be caregivers.
Yep.
We've got overwhelming bipartisan support for a federal tax credit for working family caregivers. I love that. Let's just get into it. Let's get into some of the policy solutions you guys are putting forward.
So first and foremost, we're really pushing for a caregiving tax credit on the federal level of up to $5,000. This is something President Trump actually campaigned on in 2024. And really his administration is still pushing for it to get done. It unfortunately didn't make it into the last big, beautiful bill, so to speak, but it's still something that's front and center on a lot of people's minds. It's got bipartisan support in both the House and the Senate, and it's got overwhelming support among voters across the political aisle. As I like to say as well, not only you may have been a caregiver or are a caregiver, but you could add to that and say you will be a caregiver at some point in your life. And so, again, it's something that we hope to get done if and when the Congress comes back from the government shutdown and takes care of that first and foremost. And we can get this across the finish line, hopefully, this Congress. The other thing that...
So hold on, I want to, because my audience is really engaged in this stuff. So this is, what are we calling this? Credit for Caring Act. And so it's already, yes. This is already in process now? Because this is the one where my audience can get involved and reach out.
It's already, there is already a legislation in both the House and the Senate. If you go to our website, you can find information on how to send a note to your elected member of Congress. It's got bipartisan support on both sides of the aisle in both the Senate and the House. And we're trying to do everything we can to push it across the finish line.
Wow. So, okay, audience, you know what to do. So this is a total no-brainer, and let's get engaged. Just gonna start reaching out. Let's push this forward. This is a great, great idea. My opinion, full endorsement on this. So some of the things that you guys have in your data is you can figure out how many caregivers are in your state and what kind of tasks they're taking on. What does this information show?
How hard it is to be a caregiver. I don't mean to be trite when I say that, but at the end of the day, I think that, if you have to do it or if I have to do it, you just step up to the plate and you take care of it. But it's everything from transportation needs to medical needs to making sure you have information on how to take care of a patient when you are discharged. That patient is discharged from the hospital. There are many occasions where a patient may come home and the caregiver has to understand what it takes to, say, even dress a wound or give medication through a needle or something like that. And so those aren't easy tasks for caregivers to undertake, or to feed somebody through a feeding tube, for instance.
Wow.
Those are things that
I have a family
really
member
have to
who's on
understand.
IVs every day, and that's that's a big change in lifestyle for people, for the caregiver and the patient.
I have a friend in my neighborhood who takes care of their dad, who's only on a feeding tube. So you can imagine what that encompasses on a day-to-day basis, just to make sure he has the nourishment he needs to continue to live his life as well. So it's things like that people just don't think about. And it doesn't give you the opportunity to have a whole heck of a lot of independence when it comes to wanting to do, quote, extracurricular things too. It's not like you can go and just take a 2-week vacation or go out of town at a moment's notice to do things without considering the ramifications that are involved with those decisions.
It's so important to start thinking about these things as a society and just for yourself and for your family. So November's National Family Caregivers Month. How many caregivers, how do we participate, or how do we use that to raise awareness? What do you want to accomplish with this?
What I would like to do is to continue to have these types of conversations with folks like yourself to make sure that the word gets out. Okay. I would encourage folks to go to our website, aarp.org/care for caregivers, sign up for the movement. There is an opportunity where you can sign up to become a, quote, I am a caregiver. That gives you the opportunity, again, to speak out to your member of Congress or to your United States Senator on things like the federal caregiving tax credit. I would also encourage folks around the country to talk to their state legislators, or if they have the opportunity to do it, reach out to their governors and say, hey, what are you doing on this issue in your state to help people who need it the most when it comes to alleviating some of the stress, whether it's financial or physical or emotional or otherwise.
I'm not a caregiver yet, but I'd be fortunate to be able to provide care for my parents or parents-in-law. I would it'd be an honor in many ways. But I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of caregivers. Is what do you expect? What are you to expect if you take that on? And what kind of resources does the AARP offer to make that journey a little bit easier?
Again, if you go to the website, you'll see all sorts of state resource guides, depending on where you live, to help you with everything from transportation needs to potential free legal aid to issues like worksheets and planning documents that allow for you to plan things out on a week-by-week basis. I would say more than anything else, as somebody who has gone through it, you have to have an enormous amount of patience and diligence. And as you said, you want to honor your mom and your dad at the end of the day by making sure that they're comfortable as they age later in life. And so the more we can all collectively do that, I think the better off the country will be in the long run.
Yeah, I am getting increasingly passionate about this topic. I really do think that honoring our older Americans is essential to preserving our future. And I think that's not just stuff you say. I think that's true. I think a society that values its older people and treats them with respect is important. But this is an incredibly complex issue. And it's nice that there's some people trying to provide some solutions, which you guys are doing, which is nice. Can you just give us a little taste of some of the things that are there for, I know it's state by state, but it's some of the things that people might find?
Sure. I go back to things like planning guides for how to go out and buy groceries for your folks, legal aid things to help, information on how to help if you have to bring your loved one home from the hospital and take care of their medication or take care of some of their wounds that they may have, help around things like downloading your parents' living will or your medical directives onto your phone so that you're in a position to have that information at your fingertips when you do have to go to the hospital with your loved ones and you don't have to shuffle papers around, so to speak. So it's just all those little things that add up that are very helpful when it's all said and done.
I'm looking at this data. I mean, just this federal tax credit for working family caregivers, 84% support for that. Totally bipartisan. I mean, just feels like a total no-brainer to do this.
Yeah, and I think it's just a question of making sure that people understand that there's an urgency to it. It should be a no-brainer. It's just a question of really putting that type of urgency pressure on the Congress to get it done.
Well,
when it's all
we got
said
a
and
highly
done.
engaged audience, so maybe we could help. John Hishta, AARP. Give me the website again and any parting words for the audience today.
AARP.org/care for caregivers, and anything that folks can do to take this highly personal issue, which affects us all at some point in our life, and really engage our elected officials to help us so that our country could be better off would be greatly appreciated.
Fantastic. Well, it's nice to meet you. It's great to have you guys helping out the show. And also, I think people can really help out their families by getting involved here as well. And it sounds like some great resources that are available. So I really appreciate this. And let's do it again soon.
Thank you very much, Alex. God bless you.
God bless you.
Scott Jennings here from CNN, also my colleague of the Salem Radio Network and Podcast Network. So, Scott, you're speaking of the Republican Jewish Coalition, and the question I keep thinking about is, we know, if you're an online person at all, it feels like there's all this anti-Israel energy on the right, and I don't know how big the numbers are, though, because I see a president who has pitch-perfect A-plus policy on Israel and the Middle East in general, with no notes, zero, and yet part of his coalition is ostensibly getting increasingly radicalized against Israel. And I'm trying to assess the threat. And what is your take on this?
Well, first of all, I wholeheartedly agree with you that the president has been absolutely perfect on this. He has shown unwavering moral clarity on Israel, on Iran. I mean, on all the complex issues that go on in the Middle East, Trump has been absolutely clear and had the right moral position and the right position for American foreign policy forever. I mean, this is one of those issues where he's never wavered. He's never been wrong. And look what the results are. You know, we took out Iran's nuclear facilities. We freed the hostages. We're on the brink of hopefully peace in the Middle East. It doesn't happen without Trump.
Right.
Give the man the Nobel Prize. I said that today.
Though I like that they delayed it one more year because we can talk about it for one more year. It's like ideal news. They got to do it next year, though. I don't even think they can wiggle out of this one.
I know. And boy, when he gets it, A, he'll deserve it, and B, it'll piss off all the right
people. I know.
But I think, you know, I wonder about some of these people sometimes. A, I think some of them are just in it for themselves. They're looking to carve out personal chunks of, you know, they're trying to live on Donald Trump's back.
Right.
B, I think some of them may not be who they say they are. They say they're conservatives or whatever, but it feels to me like sometimes they've been sent to divide and destroy the conservative movement.
Yes.
And with ridiculous arguments and harebrained conspiracy theories. I mean, everything that's happened in this country since October the 7th, you have these people rushing to insert the latest Jewish conspiracy theory. Right. That's what the left does.
Yeah.
That's not what we do.
Yeah.
So I'm like you. I don't know how to measure it.
Yeah.
I know it exists, and I know it's more online than I think it is out in real America.
Sure.
But I know this. If you believe in the alliance between America and Israel, and you believe in the values systems that we share, you do have a responsibility as a Republican leader to call it out. And I don't really think you should look the other way or fear losing support. I'm not sure you want the support of that kind of person anyway.
Sure, yeah, I think that makes sense. And I am really curious your take on this because you're a communications expert and everyone turns to you for communications, I think, wisdom here. And it's one of these things where Israel has not done a great job at communicating a lot of the great stuff they're doing. I think if you poll the average American who is, what's in terms of a foreign country, who's America's best intelligence partner? Do you think everyone would say Israel? Because they all should. That's the answer. There is one answer. Do you think any Americans know that? I don't know. And I know that you would go to Turning Point USA events towards the end of Charlie's life. I imagine you'll continue to go to those. And I think Charlie was, in general, a pro-Israel person, and there's a lot of conversation online about this. I spoke to him about the issue virtually daily. And the one critique he had that resonated with me, though, was that they don't do a great job selling themselves to us. And what would you recommend to them?
Well, first of all, I think it's okay to criticize in politics as long as you're doing it out of a place of good faith and of love. Yeah. And I think Charlie was.
Yes.
I mean, it's really possible for two things to be true. You can criticize your friends, but doing so because you want them to be better and you want the relationship to be stronger. And versus what we see on the right now, which is people criticizing out of a place of hate, I think. Two different things.
Right.
Look, I think PR in difficult situations, in retrospect you could always find things you could have done better. I will say this in Israel's defense. They were facing the biggest propaganda campaign in the West and in the Western media that I've ever seen. You had one entire political party in the United States. You had nearly all of the corporate Western media. You had foreign governments from Britain, France, Canada, and others. You even had Joe Biden parroting Hamas talking points in the State of the Union.
Yeah,
they faced...
And don't forget that his administration put out a tweet telling Israel to chillax, or whatever it was. I don't have the exact quote in front of me. Right after October 7th. Right away, Biden was saying, Israel, you guys chill.
Yeah, they faced just a massive coordinated propaganda campaign. Yeah. And as I said in my speech today, I think some of the atrocities that happened on October 7th are still hidden from people in the West. And at the same time, you had New York Times and other corporate media running pictures that were later they had to correct or walk back because they were propaganda staged photos. So you just had this coordinated propaganda effort, which whatever PR they were doing, they faced an onslaught which I'm not sure they predicted.
Yeah.
So I give them a little latitude on this, but at the same time, it is their responsibility. It is every nation's responsibility to explain to their constituents and to their allies, what we're doing, why we're doing it. Yeah. Look, I think they were attacked. They have every right to defend themselves, and I'm not really all that patient with people who are out here saying, well, they should do this instead of that, and they want to direct the national security of another nation.
Yeah.
If we were attacked, and you had people coming in here nitpicking our national security, I promise you we wouldn't be paying so much attention to it.
It is interesting that I think about that a lot in the context of October the 7th, where I just feel like we all moved on very quickly from that. And I feel like you should have a pretty wide berth to be able to defend yourself after that and make sure that threat doesn't happen again. And I feel like we just skipped over that sort of basic founding principle here.
And it wasn't like terrorists came over from several thousand miles away and then left.
Door.
They're literally right there.
Yeah, right.
And so not only did they suffer the attack of October the 7th, they suffer the threat of it being there, plus you have Iran sitting over here, plus you have Hezbollah, plus you have the Houthis. I mean, they're surrounded by people who literally want to destroy them. Yeah. It's not a faraway threat. And so, look, my view on our relationship with Israel is they're our close ally. We share values, we share national security interests, we share a lot of things. But they're a democratic country. Yeah. I don't think we should be dictating to them their internal politics. I think in the same way we have Trump derangement syndrome, we have some BB derangement syndrome.
Right, yes.
And I've talked to a lot of people in America who can't even have a clear conversation or a rational conversation about these issues because their hatred for Bibi. It's the same with Trump.
Yeah, same thing.
It's like, okay, set your emotions aside for a minute and let's talk about the issues. People have a hard time doing that. So we'll see what the Israeli people want to do. It's not our job to tell them what to do. They have the right of self-determination, both in terms of national security and in politics. That's my view.
So you've got an interesting constituency because you spend your daytime speaking to a mostly conservative audience, Salem audience, and then you spend your evening speaking to a mostly liberal audience, CNN audience, plus also a lot of conservatives on Twitter when the things get clipped. Give me a sense of a little bit of a difference in terms of the way you try to message to each group.
Well, I think on the radio show, it's only an hour show, so I don't have a ton of time.
Yeah, it's not a lot of time.
Yeah, what I'm trying to do every day is make sure that the news stories that I think are most important are being highlighted, and then, I'm giving the conservative view. It's I don't know if you remember the old radio broadcaster Paul Harvey. He had a thing.
Of course, yeah.
Paul Harvey, news and comment.
Yeah.
Honestly, I hate to admit it, but I'm just kind of modeling the Paul Harvey model, which is news and comment. And then I like to bring people on for interviews that I think maybe aren't often interviewed or it may be ignored a little bit in the national media, but are strong leaders or have something important to say. So it's really a combination of that. At night, I often find myself, and on the radio, you're just talking to yourself. You're just there. At night, I often find myself debating 4 and 5 people at the same time, and so that's a much different environment. And it's a much different kind of preparation. I don't get to pick the issues. I don't get to determine the framing of the issues, but I am there to, give voice to conservatives and kind of let the audience and my fellow panelists know how half the country sees it. And that's what I am dedicated to doing. But as you know, how I'm able to determine the framing or even what we're talking about during the day, I don't have any control over that at night.
Well, one thing you do very well in the TV show is that you don't yell at anyone. You never let the emotions get the best of you. And I've always thought that's the best way to talk to people who don't agree, is to don't ever get angry or flustered or frustrated with them. But it's very hard to do that. That's my number one thing that I observe that you do very well. But what do you think makes you so uniquely gifted at that particular environment?
Well, I think preparation is the key. You have to show up prepared to talk about a lot of different things. And you're going to be debating 4 or 5 people at the same time. And so I spend all day long, frankly, in prep for it. That's number one. Number two, I agree with you. I think doing it in good humor and in good faith. Don't let your emotions get the best of you. And look, I'm not perfect. There have been times when I've gotten fairly angry at something that someone has said, but you try to minimize that. I think as conservatives, we do best. We argue facts. We argue logic. We know what people have said, and we're able to parrot that back to them. Some of my most memorable moments is simply repeating back to the liberals what they themselves said or what their own side has said. They get angry when you do that. But you have to do it with a smile on your face. I firmly believe that. This is the Reagan model. We're gonna be good humor, good faith, firm. You don't have to give up on your beliefs to do that way. But I think the left often shows us a real face of anger. I mean, look at what they're saying. Some of the things they're saying right now in the wake of Charlie Kirk's murder.
Unbelievable.
Some of the ways they make their political arguments. There's this crazy liberal blogger, YouTuber out there. I see her on my feed all the time now, and she's out saying awful things, and she's got a huge audience on the left. I just think more Americans are going to be attracted to people who can smile and be of good humor and good faith, and people who are in perpetual anger and rage.
But you added the extra piece, which is prep, and this is what I've got to talk a lot about Charlie, because we were so close over the last month and a half, and it'll be something I'll be doing the rest of my life. But one of the underrated things I've been sharing with people is that his prep was meticulous. He was constantly, and when South Park was trying to make fun of him for honing his arguments, no, that was how he got so good, was that he was obsessively honing his arguments down to a point. And so it's actually a comfort to hear that you are doing a lot of work.
Absolutely. Well, I take the job seriously. I think if you're given the responsibility to speak in front of hundreds of thousands or millions of people about the political affairs of the United States, it's a high responsibility.
That's exactly the right attitude.
And you have to be prepped for it. I want to represent my value system as best I can, but also it's good TV. If people show up prepped and ready, the debates are good.
And there's less downtime. There's less wasted time. Like when the arguments are crisp, it's courteous.
You get people meandering around, and look, I think if you watch any cable, you can tell the people who show up prepped and the people who don't. And honestly, the best liberal debaters, people like David Axelrod and Van Jones, they show up prepped. They've thought through their arguments. They make great debaters, but it makes for great content. I go all over and I hear two things. I love you and I love the debates, or I don't agree with you, but I love the debates.
Yes.
People love the debates, but debates between people who are prepared and who are doing it in good faith, that's the sweet spot, I think, for cable content. And when we hit that spot, it's really good for the network.
So your day-to-day life, though. So where does the CNN show tape?
Abby Phillip is in New York at night.
How many nights a week do you have to be in New York?
Well, it depends. I've had a robust speaking schedule lately, but I'm there 2 to 4 nights a week usually.
And where's your family?
In Kentucky.
So.
Yep. And then I also dip down to Washington. I'll do the Casey Hunt show at 4 o'clock sometimes. I'll do the Caitlin Collins show at 9 o'clock. That's also in D.C. I'll do the Sunday morning State of the Union sometimes. That's also in D.C. So we have studios in both places, and so I tend to bounce back and forth.
Is this a busy schedule for you, or has your life been like this a lot?
It's gotten a lot busier in the last couple of years. You know, the presidential campaign, and then the aftermath of that. I've got the speaking tour that's going on. I go to a lot of colleges. And I've got a book coming out in November.
Yes. So you'll come back and we'll talk about that one.
I'm starting to do a few events on that. Yeah. So, a combination of all those things has kept me on the road a lot. And so I'm missing home somewhat, but I think it's for a good cause.
Yeah. How is your family doing? Are they able to meet you on the road sometimes?
They are. In fact, I brought them to Las Vegas.
Good.
I got 3 of my 4 kids here.
Wow.
And the 4th couldn't make it because he's doing a special project this semester, and he's off living elsewhere. But I got my 3 little ones with me, and we're going to go to the Sphere and see the Wizard of Oz and do some things as a family. I haven't had a ton of time to spend with them at home because Dad's been traveling, so I'm trying to make up for it.
Well, it's good. Well, we all appreciate it a lot, and I think you're giving a lot of people a lot of pointers on how to debate people and their families, which is really, really meaningful, because I think that's really where political change takes place. It's like around dinner tables and at holidays and stuff, and learning how to message properly to people who don't agree with you it's not the same as trying to get as many retweets as you can on Twitter.
Yeah, being a good debater and making lasting arguments. I think one of the things about the debates is that you don't just want a short-term political satisfaction. Yeah. You want something that's lasting. Like, you want to make the point that everybody watching is like, oh, I hadn't thought of that, or oh, he is right.
Right.
And the way to do that is to have facts and logic. I mean, often, you know this as a conservative, we're debating people who are operating on emotion, on anecdotes, and often based on things that they saw online that actually aren't even true.
That's right.
They haven't really read the real news. They're in the blue anon, bubble.
Right,
so how do you defeat that?
Yeah.
Remain calm, keep smiling, be in control of the facts and the actual situation. You can defeat it every time. And I think you and I agree on this. Our values and our ideas are such that in an honest debate, we're not going to lose very often.
No, not if we got the facts internalized.
Absolutely.
And you got to hone it a little bit, though.
You got to practice.
I don't want to burn you out anymore. Thank you for doing this. What's the book again?
It's called A Revolution of Common Sense.
Okay.
How Donald Trump.
Just a few weeks away, right?
November the 18th.
Okay, very good.
Order it now. Have it for Thanksgiving.
Great.
Or put it under the Christmas tree.
Great. And then when you're doing the book tour, you can come back and you sell some more books.
You got it.
Okay.
Thanks, Alex.
Nice to see you.
Thank you.